Hi class 9. So we'll be starting a new chapter today. And before going into this chapter, what do you see in this picture? You see a cup and you can't see what's inside, but with what is coming outside, you can guess what might be inside, right? It might be hot water, it might be hot milk, or something which is hot, coffee or chai or something which is hot, right? How are we able to say that? Because of the vapor that's coming out. So humidity might sound like a very confusing topic, but humidity is very, very simple. It's just learning about how much water vapor is present in air. The water vapor present in air can be less in amount, can be more in amount. And also remember that water vapor present in air can increase and decrease if the temperature of the place and the air increases and if the temperature of the air and the place decreases. Comparing a place in the equator, that place will have more water vapor than a place in the poles, which place will have less of water vapor. So temperature, the more the temperature, the more amount of water vapor the place or the air can have. Like every other chapter, we'll just go through the syllabus. So chapter Earth as a planet, geographic grid, rotation, revolution, Earth structure, landforms of the Earth, rocks, volcanoes and earthquakes. We haven't learnt about them. In the other half, we have learned some chapters, including composition and structure of the atmosphere is completed, insolation is completed, atmospheric pressure and winds is completed, while the other half, hydrosphere, weathering and denudation, is not completed. And continuing with the syllabus, periodic winds, local winds, variable winds, jet streams, you just learned that in the last class. Also, pollution was the first chapter which was earlier completed. And today we'll be learning about humidity. So humidity, the meaning and difference between relative humidity, absolute humidity, we'll be learning about that. And also we'll be learning about condensation. What are the different types of condensation? Cloud, dew, frost, fog, mist, all these things. In part 2 of humidity, we'll be learning about precipitation, the forms, different forms of precipitation, and also about the different forms of rainfall. So humidity, I've already given a basic intro. You know what is humidity? Humidity is the amount of water vapor present in the air. So for water to be transformed into water vapor, in smaller classes we have learned there is solid, there is liquid, there is gas. For solid to be transformed to liquid, there needs to be heat. For liquid to be transformed to gas also, there needs to be heat. So when there is high temperature, when the sun is shining so bright and there's a lot of light and heat coming from the sun and falling on earth, on an area where there's a lot of water bodies, obviously evaporation will take place. And evaporation taking place is actually changing that water body which is in liquid form into gaseous form or vapor. So because of more temperature, evaporation is more, and because of more evaporation, water vapor present in the air is also more. It is directly proportional to heat or temperature. Just now as I explained, the more the place has heat, the more evaporation will take place. The more evaporation a place takes place, the more amount of water vapor will be present in the atmosphere. Two types of humidity are there. One is absolute humidity and the other one is relative humidity. Absolute humidity is the actual amount of water vapor. Wherever you see W bar V, it means water vapor. Actual amount of water vapor at a given temperature in a given place, in any given place. For example, we take Mumbai or Hyderabad or Uttarakhand or Delhi. That's any given place. In each and every place, there's a particular temperature. For that temperature, what is the amount of water vapor present in the air? So it has a unit. For distance, we have kilometers or meters. For weight, we have kilograms or grams. For height, we have meters. And for speed, kilometer per hour. There's a lot of units for different measurements. And for humidity, we measure it as grams of moisture per meter cube of air. So how much weight, grams is weight, how much weight is that water droplets pushing or exerting on 1 meter cube of air. We just said humidity is water vapor present in air. So the water vapor will push some force or exert some force, and force will be learnt or understood only by the weight. So the weight or the force which the water droplets are exerting on the air where it is present, that is a unit of humidity. It changes with temperature, we know that. So the actual amount of water vapor at a given temperature in any place is called absolute humidity. It is measured or expressed as grams of moisture per meter cube of air. What about relative humidity? This is very important. Relative humidity is much more important than absolute humidity because relative humidity will give us a better understanding. The ratio between the actual amount of water vapor in an air column or in a meter cube of air to the total amount of water vapor that air column can hold at that temperature. So I told at a particular temperature air can hold particular amount of water vapor. For example, at 30 degrees centigrade, we are starting to have summer. At 30 degrees centigrade, imagine we can have 100 grams of water vapor. But we are having only 50 grams of water vapor. So at 30 degrees centigrade, 100 grams of water vapor is what we can have, the maximum. But we are having only 50 grams. So there is a connection between how much we have and how much we can have, the maximum of how much we can have. So 50 is what we have, 100 is the maximum of what can we have at 30 degrees centigrade. So ratio is 50 upon 100 into 100. How much we have upon how much we can have in that temperature into 100. That is expressed in a percentage. So ratio, you know, is when you divide two numbers you get a ratio. For example, the numerator ratio the denominator. So for that you need to divide. That is the same thing which I told right now. Actual amount of water vapor in the example I told 50 grams upon the maximum water holding capacity or water vapor holding capacity. At 30 degrees centigrade I told the example maximum can be 100. So we have 50, we can have 100, 50 upon 100 into 100 will give 50%. So relative humidity will be 50%. Meaning there is a 50 percentage amount of water vapor, 50 percentage of the air is filled with water vapor. When it becomes 60, when it becomes 70, when it becomes 80, and when it becomes 100, the whole air will be filled with water vapor and it starts to form water droplets or dew. Okay, how can we understand or calculate relative humidity? Now I just explained, but if it's still confusing, you can take the example of marks. Imagine you get 12 out of 20 in a class test. How will you convert it into 100? You cannot write 12 out of 20 in your final report card. You need to convert it to 100. So how will you convert to 100? 12 is the amount of marks or the marks you obtained. 20 is the maximum marks that can be obtained. Nobody can get 21 out of 20. 20 is the maximum we can get. So 12 upon 20 into 100 will get 60 percentage. 12 out of 20 in a class test, it means getting 60 out of 100 in an exam. So 12 out of 20 will be converted to 60 percentage. This is the same technique we use for relative humidity. Now imagine the actual amount of water vapor at a particular temperature is the marks you obtained. What, for example, the room you're sitting right now, there's a particular amount of water vapor in that room. That is a mark you obtained. The maximum water holding capacity at the same temperature in the room you're sitting right now, that is the maximum marks that can be obtained. So imagine 12 grams of moisture. Imagine your room is at 25 degrees centigrade and 12 grams of moisture or 12 grams of water vapor is per meter cube or present in your room for every meter cube of air. And at 25 degrees centigrade, your room can hold a maximum of 20 grams of moisture or water vapor, but in your room there's only 12. Your room can hold a maximum of 20, but it has only 12 grams of water vapor. So how much relative humidity your room will have? Same technique. 12, the amount of water vapor in your room, upon 20, the maximum water vapor your room can hold, into 100. 60 percentage will be your relative humidity. So it seems like a little bit of math, but you are actually understanding how much water vapor is present in my room based on how much it can hold, the ratio of how much it has. It is 60% filled with water vapor. My room is 70% filled with water vapor. My city or my town where I live today is 80% filled with water vapor. So you are able to calculate the amount of water vapor which is present in your place. But the temperature must be the same. If the temperature increases, the maximum water holding capacity will also increase. This is very important because when it is a cold day and when we have 50 we have 50 RH, which means we have a relative humidity of 50 percentage, we might not feel sweaty. Or if it's 60 percentage or even 70 percentage, we won't feel sweaty because the temperature is less. But when the temperature is high, when we have 35 degrees centigrade or 40 degrees centigrade, the amount of water vapor that air can hold is also increasing. It has an option to absorb a lot of water vapor, and then there is 75 percentage of relative humidity. On a cold day, 75% of relative humidity will be mild, but on a hot day, 75% of relative humidity will feel very sweaty. Because now the same 75% of relative humidity means since the temperature is more, there is more water vapor. Okay, so imagine the temperature rises from 25 degrees centigrade to 30 degrees centigrade. We will consider the same example, your room. On a 1 month ago, it was much more colder. It was 25 degrees centigrade. Now it is becoming warmer. Okay, 1 month ago, your room had 25 degrees centigrade and the maximum water vapor holding capacity was 20 grams and it had 12 grams. We calculated it as 60% relative humidity. Now in summer, it has come to 30 degrees centigrade. Your room has become warmer. You feel that your room is warmer right now and it has come to 30 degrees centigrade. This will increase the water vapor holding capacity in your room. In each and every air column inside your room, it can now hold more water vapor because it is more warm. So maximum water vapor holding capacity, when it was 25 degrees centigrade earlier in your room, it was 20. But now since the temperature of your room has increased, the maximum water vapor holding capacity will move from 20 to 40. So now what happens? Your same room at a different temperature will have a different relative humidity. Imagine you have the same 12 grams of water vapor in your room, but now because the temperature is increased, the capacity to hold more water vapor has gone up. So now it is 12 upon 40. Earlier it was 12 upon 20 because it was 25 degrees centigrade. Now it is 12 upon 40 because it is 30 degrees centigrade. 12 upon 40 into 100, 30 percentage relative humidity. So on a winter day you had 12 grams of moisture, 60 relative humidity. On a summer day you have 12 grams of moisture, the same, but 30 RH, 30 percentage of RH. See how relative humidity changes. Relative humidity changes with temperature. But if relative humidity is still the same at 30 degrees centigrade, it means that there is more water vapor. We learned that at 25 degrees centigrade, we had 12 upon 20 into 100, which was 60 percentage. What should we have when in this situation to get 60 percentage? We should have 24 upon 40 into 100, which means you will get 60 percentage. So which means there is more water vapor. When the amount of water vapor present and maximum water vapor that is reached is equal, we will have a stage called dew point. In dew point, all the water vapor in the room, all the gap or all the air present in the room has been transformed into water vapor, transformed into water droplets. Now dew will occur. That point is called dew point. So when you close a boiling vessel with water vapor with a lid, what happens? The water vapor is increasing, water vapor is coming and hitting the top part of the lid. After some time, when you open the lid and see, the inner layer of the lid will be filled with dew, filled with water droplets, because inside that boiling vessel, water vapor has increased to a point where it has reached the maximum capacity. Now it cannot stay as vapor anymore. So it has become 40 out of 40 or it has become 50 out of 50. So when you divide how much water vapor is present upon how much it can hold, automatically it will be 100%, and that is when dew is formed. So this is the instrument which is used to measure water vapor. You would have heard about this instrument. It's called hygrometer. Hygrometer. Not hydrometer. It is hygrometer. Okay, you have two thermometers. One is dry and one is covered with a cloth. The one which is covered with a cloth is fixed into a tube, and that tube will always have water in it. It will always have water in it. So hygrometer is also called dry and wet bulb thermometer. One is a dry bulb, the other one is a wet bulb. Two thermometers, one with a wet cloth is tied on one bulb and the other end of the cloth is dipped in water, while the second thermometer, the one on the left, is totally dry. The rate of evaporation of the air around is measured. Imagine I'm taking this instrument and keeping it outside. The outside temperature can be measured only by one thermometer, which is the one on the left, the dry one. Because the wet one won't actually measure the outside temperature, because the wet one has always contact with water and it will be showing the temperature of the water only. Right. So only one thermometer, the one on the left, which is dry, will show the temperature of the atmosphere or the air around. The rate of evaporation of the air around is measured with a dry thermometer. The wet bulb thermometer always shows a lower temperature because it is always touching water. The difference between the two can be used to find relative humidity. So imagine I'm keeping it on a hot day. The water is also warm, but water is at 10 degrees centigrade or 15 degrees centigrade. And the dry air is touching the dry thermometer, or the air or the atmosphere is touching dry thermometer. It is showing 25 degrees centigrade. So the wet bulb thermometer is showing 10 degree, the dry thermometer is showing 25. The difference between them is 15 degrees. With each and every difference in temperature, we can calculate the relative humidity. So what happens if both are showing the same? Imagine the wet bulb thermometer is also showing 10 degrees when it is in contact with water. The dry bulb thermometer is also showing 10 degrees. That can happen only when the thermometer is touching in water and the dry thermometer is having rainfall. So when the dry thermometer is kept in a place and rainfall is happening, water is touching the dry thermometer also. The wet thermometer is already touching water. Then both will show same temperature. That happens, it indicates dew point. If there is precipitation or rainfall outside, then both the thermometers will show the same readings. Since saturated air means air filled with water, will not show any evaporation. So it will have the same temperature, like relative humidity will be 100%. Dew point will be achieved. Both thermometers will show same temperature. Moving into condensation. Condensation is the exact opposite of evaporation. It also looks like water vapor. It also is movement or change from one form of water to the other, one form of matter to the other, where evaporation was changing from liquid to gas, while the opposite is condensation. You would have learned about this in chemistry or your sciences when you were in younger classes, but in geography, it's the same thing, but we learn it with respect to the earth and climate. All of you would have experienced this during winters when you speak, a misty smoke coming out of your mouth, right? Next time when that happens, tell yourself that is condensation. Condensation is not very confusing. This is condensation. It's as simple as this. It's something which happens every day. And during winters, it happens every day in front of your eyes through your own body. So what is happening? The person who is standing here, his body is at a higher temperature because our body is warm, but it is a winter day, so the air around his body is at a cooler temperature. Imagine a winter day, air around his body is at 10 degrees centigrade or 5 degrees centigrade. His body is at 15 degrees centigrade, so the oxygen or carbon dioxide inside his lungs from 15 degrees centigrade is coming out to 10 degree or 5 degree centigrade. So when it is coming out, I just told you, if temperature increases, the amount of water vapor holding capacity also increases. But if temperature decreases, what will happen? The amount of water vapor holding capacity will also decrease, right? So this air from his warm body coming out to the cold environment, when it comes out to a cold environment, it is coming to a place where the water vapor holding capacity is much more lesser. So what will happen? Most of the air will immediately convert into water droplets, immediately condense, immediately change from gas to water, because it is coming to a place where the amount of water vapor holding capacity is much more less. So whatever was gas inside, when it comes out, it transforms immediately into liquid, and that is condensation. It is a reverse process of evaporation. Here the heat from the vapor is sent back to the atmosphere due to a drop or reduction in temperature. occurs when temperature falls below saturation point or below dew point. So when there's a huge decrease in temperature, for example, when the body is having 15 degrees centigrade and 15 degrees centigrade, 100 grams of water vapor is what 15 degrees centigrade can hold. When it comes out, it is 5 degrees centigrade. Only 50 grams of water vapor it can hold. So 100 grams of water vapor, when it is coming out, 50 grams only can hold. So now 50 grams will stay in the atmosphere. The remaining 50 grams, immediately it will change as water. Immediately changes water droplets. And immediately we can see that smoke coming out, which is condensation. Example at 25 degrees centigrade, suppose cold air can hold 30 grams of moisture or water vapor. Now if the temperature falls, it can hold only 24 grams. What will the remaining 6 grams, what will happen? It will be condensed, just like you see in this picture. It will be changed from gas to liquid. What are the requirements for condensation to take place? One thing you need is high amount of water vapor. If there's completely low amount of water vapor, for example in your body, this person's body, there's no water vapor, he's just blowing out dry air, the chances of this forming is very less. But at the same time, when it is filled with water vapor and it is coming out to a cold environment, the chances of this happening is very high. Minute particles of dust, smoke or water molecule can hold on. Temperature must be below dew point. Sometimes on a cold day when it has already rained and you can see the sun shining bright, some days, some winter days, it would have rained. On that day when you walk out and when you breathe, the smoke coming out will be much less, or sometimes the smoke won't even come out. It might be still a winter day, but it won't come out because outside it is already dew point, already it has rained, already it is 100% water vapor. Now how much ever you release outside, it cannot become more than 100%, right? So condensation won't happen. Okay, so requirements are high amount of water vapor, minute particles of dust, smoke or salt or any form of impurity for your water droplets to hold on to, that is needed, and temperature must be very less, must be below dew point. That is when the warm water vapor comes out, it transforms into water droplets and changes from gas to liquid. Okay, what are the forms of condensation? Here are two pictures and we'll learn about much more. Dew, water vapor condensing on the surface from tiny droplets of water, occurs mostly during winters due to cooling of air allowing it to form dew point. When I was teaching the basics of humidity, I told when the water droplets, when the amount of water vapor present in the air reaches 100%, it automatically changes into water, that is dew. You can see that on the blades of grass during winter days. Frost. When the surface freezes, when the surface, for example, this same grass, if it freezes or if it goes below 0 degree centigrade, what happens? The water droplets present around it will also freeze. It can occur on crystals, as crystals, on blades of grass or tiny rock particles. The second picture indicates frost. So dew is when it's liquid, frost is when it's solid, fog is also when it is liquid. But it looks like gas is also when it's liquid. Ground cools faster than air above. Okay. Ground cools faster than air above during winter because the sun heats up the land more than water. We know that during summer. Same time, during winter, the land is colder more than water. The ground cools faster than air above during winters. Water vapor at lower levels get condensed faster because the ground is very cold. So just above the ground, all the air condenses and forms water vapor. This forms a smoky layer made up of minute solid particles of water vapor that affect visibility. When we travel, when it's foggy, it's very difficult for us to see. Fog is nothing but a cloud which reaches ground level. Cloud is also formed as the same way. Water vapor rising up. When it rises up, what happens? It becomes cooler and cooler and cooler. It condenses gas to liquid. It forms a thick layer of smoke which is called cloud. The same thing if it happens on the surface. When the land is very cold, it doesn't have to rise so much up. Immediately above the land itself, because it is cold, the warm air condenses and it changes into water droplets and it forms a cloud. That cloud which is formed near the surface is called fog. Mist is a slightly denser or less denser smoky appearance of condensed air due to temperature inversion or temperature decrease. It is called mist. It has a better visibility when compared to fog, but mist is also foggy in nature. So this is the last explanation or last point of condensation, which is clouds. How are the clouds formed? I hope that video gave a good explanation of how clouds form. The most important aspect for a cloud to form is dust particles, because this water vapor cannot stay in the air and form a big structure if it doesn't attach itself to something. So it needs some kind of dust particles. That is why in the troposphere we have so much of clouds. When we learned about the different layers of the atmosphere, do you remember? I hope you remember that the lowest layer there's all weather phenomena, because in the higher layers there's no dust particles, there's no pollution, there's lack of different elements of air molecules, so it's less denser in the air is less denser over there. So it is actually an advantage where all weather phenomena and clouds are able to form in the lowest layer of the atmosphere. Clouds are minute drops of water which condense to a nuclei. A dust or a carbon dioxide molecule occur when it is fully saturated or 100% precipitation will occur. Evaporation takes place, condenses with the nuclei to give extra water vapor due to a lowering of temperature. The nuclei that help in condensation is called a condensation nuclei. So the dust particle which helps in all this water vapor which rises up to hold on to it, that's one dust particle or any oxygen or carbon dioxide molecule. That particle will be called a condensation nuclei. Slowly clouds increase in size and the water molecules also increase, and by the time it reaches 100 percentage, automatically relative humidity also is 100 percentage, and then dew point is reached, so it obviously has to shed rain. So inside the cloud also humidity is also calculated, because inside the cloud also every time water vapor is coming towards it, the RH or relative humidity, how much a cloud can hold water, from 60%, 70%, 80%, 90%, when it reaches 100% it will precipitate or shed rain. We'll be learning about the different types of clouds. There are many types of clouds, but we'll be just discussing on four major types. First is cumulus. You would have seen this type of cloud like a cauliflower or cotton ball shaped clouds. It's seen at low altitudes. So when you write about a cloud, know the name, know how they appear or look like, and what do they indicate. Cumulus clouds indicates a sunny day where it's warm climate, a pleasant climate, no humidity, no rainfall, pleasant, and it is at low altitude. So the appearance, the name, the altitude, what does it indicate? These 4 points are very important when you write about each and every cloud. I repeat, the name, the altitude, the appearance, and what it indicates. The second one, cumulonimbus, is present in all altitudes because it starts from the lowest altitude to the highest altitude. It is gray in color and it is vertical in shape, and it is like an anvil while it is narrow at the bottom, broad at the top. This indicates rain and thunderstorm and heavy rain. Stratus is a middle altitude cloud. It is like a sheet or like a blanket which is spread out. It also predicts rain. If it's gray in color, it predicts rain. If it's white in color, it means that there is a chance of rain in the coming days. And the last one, cirrus, it is a high altitude cloud. It's not low, it's not moderate, it is not in all altitudes, only at the high altitudes. It's thin and fleecy, which means it is like a thin feather or wisp. So it's thin and fleecy in appearance, and it also indicates a sunny day, a bright day without any precipitation. So these are the four major types of clouds. Look at the picture, understand it, and I want all of you to draw this picture when I am asking you to write about clouds along with four major points: the name, the altitude, the appearance, and what it indicates. Okay, this slide is the last, which will give an overview of the whole chapter, and it mainly focuses on how our body reacts with increasing humidity. We feel more sweaty on days when there's more humidity. We feel less sweaty when there's less humidity, and it also affects with the temperature. When there's high temperature and then there's humidity, it feels more sweat. And how our body reacts or how we feel, our everyday life is affected, the clothes we wear and how we feel comfortable or we don't feel comfortable based on the change in humidity and change in climate. So that's what we're going to learn in this last slide.
Humidity is a measure of how much water is dissolved into the air. It's a pretty straightforward concept. Where it gets tricky is that there's an upper limit to the amount of water that can be dissolved in the air that changes based on the temperature. The hotter the air, the more water can be dissolved in it. So for example, if the temperature is 41 degrees Fahrenheit, you can dissolve up to 5 grams of water into a kilogram of air. But if the temperature is 77 degrees, you can dissolve up to 20 grams. When it comes to back sweat, you would assume that 20 grams per kilogram is going to feel much stickier than 5 grams per kilogram. But it might surprise you to know that your local weather forecast would report these two examples of humidity as the exact same, 100%. When you see this percentage of humidity on the local forecast, the meteorologist is referring to something called relative humidity. This is a measure of how much water is dissolved in the air, divided by how much water could be dissolved in it at a specific temperature. In other words, relative humidity shows how close the air is to full saturation. 85% relative humidity means the air is 85% saturated. Both of our examples are at 100% saturation or 100% relative humidity. So why is it that the second example would feel so much more sticky? Because of how your body cools itself, with sweat. Sweat cools your body down because water molecules in it absorb thermal energy from your skin, evaporate, and take some of the heat energy with them. If the air is at 100% relative humidity, there's literally nowhere for that sweat to evaporate off to. So it stays stuck, dripping down your lower back or in your armpits. At lower temperatures, your body won't produce as much sweat, so it's less of a problem. If you live in a place with consistent year-round temperatures, you can rely on relative humidity to inform your wardrobe choices. But anywhere else, and we cannot all be so blessed as to live in San Diego, it alone isn't going to give you the info you need to be prepared for the day. This is why meteorologists also use heat index and dew point to clue us in. Heat index supposedly tells you how hot it feels with any given temperature and humidity. So for example, if it's 92 degrees Fahrenheit with a relative humidity of 85%, the heat index is 126 degrees Fahrenheit, and the National Weather Service would tell you that heat stroke is likely, so stay inside. This can be useful, but how it feels is pretty subjective. Dew point, on the other hand, is objective. It's the temperature that the air needs to be cooled to reach 100% relative humidity. You can imagine that if the dew point is high, it's going to be a pretty muggy day. To understand how it works, take a look at this little box here. Let's say that inside the box it's 55 degrees Fahrenheit with a relative humidity of 90%. At this temperature, the air is capable of having more water dissolved in it than is physically inside of the box. If we lower the temperature slightly to 52 degrees Fahrenheit, the upper limit of the air decreases slightly to an amount equal to that of the water trapped inside of the box. This means that we've reached 100% relative humidity. This 52 degree sweet spot represents the dew point. If you get colder than the dew point, the air would be unable to dissolve all the water, and condensation, or dew, would begin forming inside. That means the dew point can't be higher than the temperature of the air, because when the two temperatures meet, dew starts to form. To stay crisp, we want to stay away from high relative humidity, so keeping an eye on dew point helps you know the temperature to look out for. You can use
Okay, so that video uh, gave an understanding of how dew point and heat index are two terms that they stressed on. Heat index is if there is a particular amount of temperature with a particular amount of humidity, for example, there is 50 degrees centigrade with 80 percentage relative humidity, it is going to feel more hotter than 50 degrees centigrade. It will feel like 65 degrees centigrade. So the same way, when there's a lower temperature with lower humidity, it will feel much more lower than that original temperature. So that is heat index, how much we will feel rather than how much is written. Dew point is, as I told, when the air column reaches 100% water vapor, so that it can completely come to a point where dew is formed. If the temperature around is high, then it must reach at that highest temperature. More water vapor must come, because high temperature has more water vapor holding capacity, so more water vapor must come in for it to reach the dew point. If it's at low temperature, only less water vapor is required to reach dew point. So those are the two terminologies, and I hope this video lesson is just the first step of humidity. You were able to understand it, and see you in the next step.